Is Bitcoin ready for $50,000? Will we ever see Bitcoin again at $20,000? And where should we be looking to buy our investment positions? I will be providing you guys with my high time frame plan for Bitcoin. What we can see over here is the monthly chart for Bitcoin. I want to go over the monthly, weekly, and daily chart, and then I will be providing you guys with a few trading scenarios. In which the first thing that I'm noticing over here is this bearish monthly fair value gap that we have formed over here for the Bitcoin price, in which we are now tapping into that monthly fair value gap with the previous monthly candle, and we close the candle below. Also, we zoom into the current monthly candle, we can see that we close the candle as a doji candlestick over here, or some people might call it a Darth Maul candle, in which we have big wicks to the upside and to the downside. Now, what will the human reaction be to this doji candlestick is that usually doji candlesticks either indicate a slowdown of a trend or a potential trend reversal. So what will happen here, in my opinion, is that many retail traders will look at this monthly doji candlestick and they will be looking for shorts because they try to catch a reversal. Now, what usually happens with these Darth Maul candles or these doji candlesticks is that first one side of the wick gets filled and then the price reverses towards the other side of the wick. All right, so we can either go for the top wick first, then go to the bottom, or we can go for the bottom wick first and then go to the top. Now, this aligns with my idea for Bitcoin to push a little higher first, because I think that it's just way too obvious for retail to enter a short position over here with their stop loss above the top of the doji candlestick and then target, for example, this sell side liquidity, right? Many retail traders will be looking to enter a position like this based on just this monthly candlestick. This is an RR of 3, so it makes sense for retail to FOMO into a position like this. Now, I think this doesn't make any sense. I think there's not enough early short positions that got wrecked yet, and I think to wreck them, we first have to go up a little bit more over here. All right, so what we can see over here is the lower time frame range for Bitcoin, right? And if we want to look at the lower time frame range, we have to obviously identify it, and it looks something like this. This is the range, right? What happens is that many people have identified this deviation above the range high, right? And now usually after deviation of the range low, you should get a test of the range high. I think there's many people that are looking to short this range high retest over here. But what people are forgetting is that we have this huge wick over here on the daily time frame that is yet to be filled, right? That wick is still unfilled. Now, what is quite interesting about this wick is that this wick is actually a potential inducement for a bearish daily order block. Because if we go all the way back towards this previous price action over here that we formed in December 2021, is that we can see that we formed this bearish daily order block over here. This is a high probability daily bearish order block. Why? Because this order block was being formed while we swept the liquidity over here above this high, as we can see. Also, we have this bearish daily fair value gap that was left behind beneath the bearish order block, which is another requirement. We have this high over here, this lower high that was acting as our first inducement. Also, this bearish daily order block initiated this impulse to the downside that caused this break of structure. And obviously right now, as we can see that I just explained to you guys, we have this front run of the bearish daily order block over here, in which this front run might be the second inducement. I think there's many stops that are going to be resting above this high, because like I said, many people are looking to short this retest with their stop above the high and then target, for example, new lows, right? So I think it makes sense for Bitcoin to give us a last exit pump in which everyone that FOMO'd into shorts upon the wrong confirmations put their stops above this high, in which my first target for Bitcoin indeed is $50,000. I think it makes sense for Bitcoin to first get a push towards $50,000, in which if we go there, if we go into this bearish daily order block, that's a very interesting area for sure. Now, why is this such an interesting area besides the fact that we have the bearish daily order block? Because if we look at this previous bull market range over here, right? We have this previous bull market range in which we have a range low with 3 pivots over here, and obviously we have our pivot for the range high over here. What we can see over here is quite interesting, because over here, if we look at this weekly range, why I think that this weekly range is quite interesting is that we can see that we wicked above the mid-level of the range over here into that bearish monthly fair value gap, right? And this reminds me of something very, very interesting. Because over here, we also saw a wick above the range high, in which we swept this liquidity, right? This wick over here also sweeps the liquidity over here. Then after this first sweep, we rejected to the downside, right? Do we see this rejection to the downside? Now look at this sweep over here, and then also over here, we see this rejection to the downside, right? So what happened over here is that many people saw this sweep of the previous all-time high and the range high, and they saw rejection. So what happens is, what is human behavior doing? They are opening shorts because of that sweep and because of that rejection. They put their stop above the local high, and look what happened afterwards. The price of Bitcoin took out that local high, and then we saw the bear market start over here with that impulse to the downside, that shift structure over here, right? So we had a first sweep to induce people into eager shorts, and then afterwards we pushed above to get the first proper sweep, the real sweep that caused the break of structure over here, and then we continued to the downside. So right now it makes sense to me to get a similar scenario in which the mid-range is just as pivotal as we had the range high level over here. We had this very important liquidity over here, just like we had the liquidity over here. We have now seen that first sweep over here, and this first sweep, because of the rejection afterwards, is making people FOMO into short positions over here with the stop above the high and targeting, for example, this imbalance over here or maybe the range low, right? In which I'm expecting a second sweep into that bearish daily order block before the true rejection. This makes a lot of sense to me. Also based on the previous scenario, the previous price action from the previous all-time high, this makes a lot of sense. I think that many people have opened premature short positions over here, and in my opinion, in order to really become bearish, in order to really expect that midterm crash to the downside of approximately 30 to 50%, I want us to take out that current local high one more time, tap into the bearish order block around $50,000 towards $52,000, which also aligns with the bearish monthly fair value gap that I just indicated, and then start a midterm correction to the downside. Now you guys obviously want to know, okay Guru, when we do get a midterm correction and crash, where should we be looking to buy Bitcoin and altcoins? Where are the key support areas? Now the first thing that I'm noticing when I'm once again looking at the monthly chart is this inverse monthly bearish fair value gap. We had this bearish fair value gap, we invalidated the bearish fair value gap with this very strong move above. We opened and closed two candles above, so that in that monthly bearish fair value gap should now be a potential area of interest for potential long and buy positions. And then I'm mainly looking at the bottom of that inversion over here, right? In which if we switch on the weekly range once again, and we go to the weekly chart over here, what we can see over here is something very, very interesting. Because what we can basically see is that not this weekly range over here, but if we look at the previous accumulation range that we have over here, right, for Bitcoin, in which we have a range high, we have a range low, is that the previous range high of that accumulation range is exactly aligning with the bottom of that inversion, right? So if I go to the daily time frame over here, we have the previous accumulation range, right? So if I'm removing that inversion for a second, we have the previous accumulation range over here, range high, range low, mid-range getting respected very well, range low getting respected, deviation, push above the range high, and we expand higher, right? We have not seen a retest yet of the previous range high. Now, quite often, these high time frame accumulation ranges, once you get a breakout above, at some point the price is going to offer a retest of that accumulation range, right? And a retest of the previous range high, as long as that range high holds, we should expect the proper bull run to start. Now, what I like about this previous range high, why this is my first area of interest, like I said, is that it exactly aligns with the bottom of that inversion on the monthly time frame. It is a very, very nice confluence in my opinion. All right, so That's definitely, in my opinion, the first area to keep an eye on. It's the bottom of the monthly fair value gap, right? In which, if we go to the weekly time frame, we can all see that the bottom of that monthly inversion is exactly aligning with this weekly bullish fair value gap that we have over here, right? So this is the first area of interest for me. If we take the mid-level of that weekly fair value gap, in which we know that these mid-levels quite often are quite important, if we switch on that mid-level and we extend it to the right, we can see that the mid-level of that weekly fair value gap also aligns with the bottom of that inversion. So with the bottom of the inverse monthly fair value gap, we have the range high of the extremely pivotal reaccumulation range after the bear market, and we also have the EQ level of that bullish weekly fair value gap. A lot of confluences potentially lining up for the Bitcoin price right there. So that's definitely my first area of interest. And we cannot forget about the 3-day 200 EMA. If we look in the past, we can see that the 3-day 200 EMA was extremely pivotal support over here, right? It was extremely pivotal support over here, resistance, right? Resistance over here, we reclaim it, and then we got this impulse to the upside. The 3-day 200 EMA is slowly starting to align with that exact area of interest. So the first area of interest for me is anywhere in between, let's say over here, this entire block that I just marked out on the chart is my first area of interest. It's anywhere in between $32,500 all the way towards $31,500. That's my first area of interest. I believe that if you get a test of that area of interest, you should be looking to buy Bitcoin and altcoins, and there's a decent possibility that the area of interest is going to hold. Now, the second area of interest, in my opinion, is a little lower, and it's the bottom of the previous bull market range over here, around 28.9K, around $29,000, right? So we see this previous bull market range low pivots over here. We have 3 pivots for that range low, and we have a range high. Now, as long as this retest holds, this turns out to be a huge deviation, and technically speaking, we should go for the range high over here, right? Looking at a range perspective. So if you do get a test of the range low, that's definitely a huge buy opportunity. Why? It also aligns with this bullish weekly fair value gap over here, right? In which we have a bullish weekly fair value gap over here that exactly aligns with that range low level. So once again, we have the weekly confluence in combination with that range low, and that's my second area of interest. Now, what will happen is, if we get a test of this area, many people are looking at the first area of interest as an area that we have lost, right? So this is a pivotal area of support, and people think that if we fall beneath this area, that we go for new lows, right? Because everyone can identify how pivotal this previous range high is over here, right? So I actually like the way that if we fall beneath it a little bit, that people will get extremely bearish and probably will target, for example, this low over here, and probably also will target the CME gap that we have over here. Many people will start talking about the CME gap over here, and that is making me think that we are going to front run this area of interest. I think there's 2 areas of interest right now for the Bitcoin price until proven otherwise. It's either the area of interest between 32.5 and 31.5 over here, and if we get a retest of the range low around $29,000, you should really be buying big into Bitcoin and into altcoins. I think if we do get a midterm correction to either one of these 2 levels, you should be going big on Bitcoin and altcoins. Obviously, it's not a financial advice, but this is my view based on these charts, right? Also take into account the ETF approval. Big money is flowing into the market. If you do get corrections like this and people start panic selling, people start talking about $20,000, maybe even $15,000, that's where the big boys will be buying Bitcoin and you will be selling to them. And that's exactly what you don't want to do, all right? So this is my high time review on Bitcoin. First, I would like to see a test of 50 towards $52,000. If you do get signs of a bearish rejection there, I will be opening swing shorts targeting 32.5 and maybe even $29,000 for the Bitcoin price. If you guys do have any questions after watching today's YouTube video, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. If you guys have completely different views on the high time frame for Bitcoin, please feel free to let me know as well. I would love to hear your views as well. Also guys, don't forget to smash up the like button and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I'll catch you guys on Wednesday's video, in which we have a very, very special video and the start of a brand new series. Ciao, ciao.